is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with state of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom is being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after the meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Committee and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Climate Action Committee may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. All right, so we'll go ahead and start the roll call. And I believe Alex was bringing an inspiration today.
Okay, I'll start with the roll call. Jerry Glazer. I do not see Jerry yet. Alex Goodman.
Here. Excuse me, here.
Thank you. Dina Allen.
Here.
Joshua Somene.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Kenna Lee.
I'm here.
Lisa Pierce.
Here.
Deborah Burns.
Here.
Sunali Sikand. I do not see Sunali here. Woody Hastings.
Here.
Jasenia Garcia. I do not see Jasenia here yet. Diana Rich. I do not see Diana, but I believe Jasenia just entered the room. Kathy Ottinger.
Here.
And Sarah Gurney. Thank you, Sarah. And there is a quorum.
Perfect. Alex, did you bring an inspiration for us today?
I did. Give me 1 sec here. I'm gonna pull it up. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna read a quote from John Muir, and I'll just have a few words to say after that. This quote spoke to me. I really liked it. Just kind of reminded me. It says, keep close to nature's heart and break clear away once in a while and climb a mountain or spend a week in the woods. Wash your spirit clean. And that's by John Muir. And I don't know, for me, I just did that. I went to Guatemala for a few days and was out in the wilderness in the jungle out there, and just reminded me how beautiful this world is and why we're trying to save it, you know? Not that we always need reminding, but I think once in a while it is good to be reminded and know that there is just so much beauty here. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody today. So I hope we can all do that once in a while, if not more often.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
So we have our review of action items from Joshua, and just to call to everyone's attention, next meeting I will not be there. So if anyone is willing to step up and do the note taking for Joshua and tracking the action items for him, that would probably really be helpful. All right, Joshua, you want to go ahead?
Amazingly, there were no action items from last meeting, which is not to say there's not any action happening out there.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda? Sunny, I think you're the only official member of the public, but I think you're here to address something on the agenda. Do we have any statements of conflict of interest from any committee members? No. Okay. We're ready for the planning department report.
All right, let's see. This will be a little repetitive from last night, Debbie, sorry. So a couple things going on. We have had a great housing element workshop on Monday night that is the city's process of planning for housing within the city of Sebastopol for the next 8 years. And the prior Tuesday, the city council approved Huntley Square, which is the 10-unit housing development subdivision on Bodega Avenue. It's actually right across from the cemetery where there's that sidewalk gap. You sort of end up going off the sidewalk, up a dirt trail and back down. Part of their requirements is they will be building in curb gutter sidewalk. So they'll be closing that gap. And of interest to this committee, that is an all-electric sustainable design. So there are folks who are starting to do that regardless of what the city's allows or not. So quite progressive. And for anyone who is interested or knows someone who might be, the Public Art Committee has re-released the call for sculptures for the sculpture garden to add a few more sculptures. If you're interested in coming down to celebrate that, they are planning, starting to plan an opening, and that'll be held June 18th. And I think, oh, and then just upcoming meetings, April 1st is the date the council is scheduled to hear the gas station ban. Or sorry, April 5th, the first meeting in April. And I think that's all I have this week. Councilmember Gurney.
Question? Would this be a time for questions on that?
Sure, yeah.
The item coming on April 5th, is that like an action item, like a voting item, or is it?
Correct. It will be a noticed public hearing, and the process for the city for adoption of ordinances is to first have a public hearing. So that is scheduled for April 5th, taking public comment, deliberating, and then doing a vote. The vote is actually, it's called a first reading. All city ordinances that basically go into our Muni code or changes to our Muni code do require a second reading. So that I have scheduled for the second meeting in April. Usually that is just a consent item. It's not discussed. It's more of a formality and a part of state law that requires you do a second reading, and then it's adopted, and then it would go into effect 30 days later.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, Sarah, it looks like you're on the hook for the council report.
Well, if I may, I want to check with Carrie. I haven't seen the upcoming agenda. Carrie, do you know anything of significance that's coming on? I know the ATP application will be heard.
Yeah, actually, yeah, let me just make sure for, because I do have the March 15th agenda has been finalized. So let me check
Okay,
that real quick.
yeah, you probably have access to it, and I haven't looked if I have, but that's the one item I think would be of interest to this group looking ahead to next Tuesday night, and that would be a grant application to the Active Transit Program, ATP, which is a Caltrans program that will be seeking money for Bodega Avenue and Rego Road and all the intersections that relate to that. There's a great map, I think, that will be available to show our bicycle network throughout town when the packet is out. So I recommend people check into that. Also, I mean, Carrie's summarized our recent work that we just did. So I want to mention two things that I did as a council member. First, the walks program is up and going again. We had a very successful February walk. The next one will be the last Saturday in March. We're getting people out on their feet again, walking around town. I think my walk attracted something like, I don't know, 54. It got over 50, and I was having trouble counting as people were walking around and very happy to be out and be together and walking around town. It was just really sort of delightful to have company like that again. Also, I met with Brian Albee of Sonoma County Transit and Suzanne Smith of the SCTA to talk about kind of a relaunch program for the Sebastopol Shuttle. We're looking to, at a situation now where ridership is still below the pre-pandemic levels for our shuttle. It's gone up, kind of returned in Cloverdale and Windsor, places where the high schools are pretty much a city generated population and the students are riding. In our case, we have an elder ridership, and they're, I think, a little more hesitant and, you know, cautious about public transit. So we're hoping to work with his marketing staff and our outreach coordinator to create kind of a relaunch program to get people back on the bus around
Thank you,
town.
Councilmember Gurney. And I do have just on next Tuesday's agenda, thank you. I
Good.
submitted my
interesting
reports
things.
yesterday, so I was sort of in the past almost for me.
Yeah. Okay, you're ahead of me.
So the so at the last Tuesday's council meeting, the council also adopted a mandatory organic waste disposal reduction ordinance. And so that's going for that second reading on March 15th, and that'll go into effect in the middle of April. The Climate Action Committee does have their informational update
Coming up.
to council, which Kenna and Joshua, I know you guys know about. A couple of other items of interest. There is going to be discussion of bike lane modifications on Morris Street, as
Good.
well as a proposal to amend the city's purchasing policy regarding environmentally preferable purchasing.
Right, which is an effort through the Zero Waste Committee.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I mean, that's good. We're, you know, things are coming through the process, getting done.
Great.
Mhm.
Thank you guys. Anything else before we move on? Okay, thank you. Just before we start the regular agenda, I want to check in. We have Sunny Galbraith here from Zero Waste, and I want to make sure you're able to hang around. We have you second after legislative update, but if you need to go, okay. So I'll hand this over to Woody for our legislative update.
Well, thank you very much, Kenna. And I am going to share my screen. Let's see here. Should be this one. And where's our little, why do they always hide it?
I think if you go to the right where it says slideshow next to
Yeah.
share.
Right. Okay, so it should be full screen now. Everybody has thumbs up. Okay. All right. Well, thanks. So this is a legislation update for you all. I don't necessarily think there's any action tonight. I mean, this is going to be all new information. I think, you know, the bills I'm going to present are the ones that I think this committee might want to be aware of, and the city of Sebastopol might want to take some action on. I'm actually tracking about a little over 50 bills at this point. And so I've just boiled it down to a few that I'm going to address. Before I do that, just a little bit about the legislative calendar so you can get your bearings. The deadline for new bills to be introduced was February 18th. So all the bills that, you know, the legislators wanted to sort of get into that sort of fanfare have been introduced. There is still some potential for surprises to come because they do introduce these things called spot bills, which don't say much, but then they amend in some significant language later. So there could be some new bills that might come forward that I'm not going to be going over today because they haven't been turned into real bills yet. Then there's some deadlines around getting out of the committees. I think the key one to be aware of is May 27th, the end of May. They need to get out of their first house where they're introduced, and that's when we might want to take action, send in a letter, something like that. And then at the end of August is when both House needs to pass bills out for them to get to the governor's desk. And this year, because it's an election year, it's a shorter cycle, usually goes through October. It's only going through September this year because it's an election year. So they want to end the session so that all the folks that are campaigning can do their campaign and such. So that's the calendar. So there are 4 main bills I want to touch on. And then there are 3 additional ones that relate to EV charging that I'll get to in a minute. So the four are, and I'm going to go into each one of these into a little bit of detail. So SB 833, SB 370, which is 379, AB 1445, SB 917, and then 3 bills related to EV charging. So I'll go into each one of those in detail. And by the way, I can share this PowerPoint with everybody, and these bill numbers link to the actual official sort of bill page that has all of the details about the bill. So 833, this bill is a bill sponsored by the Climate Center, and it is actually, if folks that were on the committee last year might recall that we had a very, very similar bill. It's basically the same bill as SB 99 last year that the city sent a support letter on. So thank you for that. And so we reintroduced it this year. It's the same bill author, Bill Dodd, a North Bay senator. And this one is the one that provides technical and financial resources to local governments for community energy resilience plans. So that's community energy resilience interpreted means things like microgrids, distributed energy resources for critical facilities, for emergency shelters, things like that. So there's no money in the bill itself, but we are working very diligently on budget requests. There is money in the state's coffers these days, and so we are looking. It's sort of hodgepodgey, but it's a total of about, excuse me, $1.3 billion that we're looking to secure for both the planning part, but also for the actual steel in the ground, as they call it, you know, the implementation side of things. And then this is a hyperlink to a fact sheet on that bill. 379, SB 379 by San Francisco Senator Scott Wiener, the Solar Access Act. This would call on, it's sponsored by the California Solar and Storage Association. And folks might be familiar with SPUR if you've ever hung around in San Francisco. It's a San Francisco policy group and Environment California statewide group. So those are the sponsors. And it requires cities like Sebastopol to provide online instant solar permitting for solar projects, solar and storage projects. So this is meant to greatly decrease approval time for solar and storage, cut permitting costs for the cities and for homeowners, and help meet climate goals. And there's a sample support letter. The Climate Center has supported this bill, so that's a hyperlink to a support letter. AB 1445 by Mark Levine, another local rep. And it's just, I mean, there's what, 40 senators and 80 assembly members, and it just so happens that the ones that are introducing the bills that relate to local government are our local legislators. Anyway, so this one is all around, including issues related to emergency escape routes and such, and sort of planning out in the general plans of the city. Factors around escape routes for wildfire and such. And I think this is the last of these main bills, SB 917, Seamless Bay Area Transformation Act. And what this is all about is, and I thank Jerry Glaser, actually, he was the first one that ever mentioned Seamless Bay Area to me. We've become very familiar with them now, and I've had several meetings with them, and the Climate Center supports their effort here. And what this would do would direct the MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which is the 9-county, sort of transportation authority, to sort of to institute a program that would streamline all of the 26 transit agencies that serve the Bay Area. And that includes Sonoma County Transit Authority. So, include transit services that come all the way to Sebastopol. And the link I put there is to the actual Seamless Bay Area. Obviously, this is sponsored by Seamless Bay Area. They are an organization. And so that's what that link is. So these three bills related to EV charging in multi-unit dwellings, and I think these I kind of put separately because there's more research that needs to be done, and there may be some. I'm imagining there's going to be some maybe combining of some of this stuff, or some of them are not going to make it very long. The first one is by Bernard Horvath, which talks about cost-effective trigger points for installing electric vehicle charging in multi-unit dwellings. And what that's all about is when a remodel is happening, when something's going on at that apartment building that makes it make sense to work on installing EV charging, if there's a remodel, if there's a reconstruction, that kind of thing, that they would use that as a point to do the EV charging infrastructure. AB 2075 by Ting. There are other building standards that don't include anything, and there's several government agencies that address building standards. They don't include anything about EV charging standards in them, so this bill would do that. Closely related to that is AB 965. Also, this is a bill that was held over for 2021, also by Mark Levine, and it asks these state agencies to set standards for the parking spaces in multi-unit dwellings. So as you can see, all sort of kind of related bills, and I think there's going to be some shakeout of these. So I think they require a little bit more review. I do want to just say a little bit about the budget, the state budget, which has lots of money in it. And this is a big part of the reason why our funding committee, excuse me, our funding committee is suggesting, the city getting a grant writer, because there's going to be about $22 billion in new funding for climate action in the state, and that totals up to about $37 billion if you add in what's already existing for climate action, and $6 billion for I'm sorry, I say climate related there. It's transportation, should be transportation there. $6 billion for transportation, and a total of about $10 billion if you add in what's already available. So, you can see these bullets here. There's a prioritization of disadvantaged, vulnerable communities. It's going to be competitive grants, again, ergo, why a grant writer. And then what typically happens in the state around the budget is that in May, there's a big revision of the budget. And that's because then, after May, the tax receipts are known in the state. And so then on June 15th, per state law, they must approve the California budget. And then just to say that there's also significant monies coming in from the federal government, about $45 billion coming in from that infrastructure bill that was passed late last year. And again, that's going to be competitive. A lot of them are going to be competitive grants. So that's what I had for today. I hope that was helpful. And I think, again, the idea is that at some point, as things progress and as deadlines come up for committees, or maybe just at the floor vote, I can, help the city and, certainly review this with this committee, and then work with the city to get, a letter. We can provide sample letters, sample language to support. I don't have any bills to oppose. There's no bills out there that are trying to crush small cities or anything like that. So nothing to oppose. It was all support. And then this link here is to where I track the other 50 or so bills. So I will stop the share so I can see you. And I see Kari has raised her hand. So Kari, should I shepherd the? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. This is, and you can answer this at any time or tell me it's off topic. I do know that the FCC is also reviewing all the solar NEM net metering changes. Do you have any sort of update on that?
Yes, and it's the California Public Utilities Commission that manages that matter. And there was just an enormous, phenomenal outpouring of public opposition on January 27th. Epic. I mean, it was like 7 or 8 hours of public testimony, and it was all just original and not just people parroting the same talking points. And that was, I'm mentioning that because that was really the turning point. After that January 27th hearing, shortly after that, we basically learned that they are basically going back to the drawing board. The proposed decision that was so bad that was going to put the, onerous, fixed monthly charges and, renege on the original agreement for the earlier NEM customers, where they would get a shorter time frame on the thing. All of that is just, they've thrown that out. They're going back to the drawing board, and it's going to be a while before they bring it back. There are 2 new commissioners at the California Public Utilities Commission, and so part of the reason was that they really realized that those 2 new commissioners need to. We've got a new member in the member of the public in the audience. I see in Joshua's screen. Anyway, so 2 new commissioners, and they need to get up to speed on this. So it's going to be months. I heard probably not before September that it will come back, something like that. Does that answer the question?
That's perfect. Thank you. I get some information from my solar installer, and I'm trying to track it, but it's hard. So thank you for that in depth.
Yep. So Kenna is next on my screen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about the timeline that these are just a question. Like you gave this timeline, and it seems like, okay, all this stuff happens in the future, but having seen how this committee definitely has gotten behind the timeline for a number of things that we thought, okay, let's try to, support this bill. But then by the time we get the information, get it on the agenda, and then try to pass that on to the city council, it's like we're missing these deadlines. So I'm wondering at what point it would make sense, and especially for Sarah and Carrie to weigh in, of, how far ahead of the ball do we need to be if we are going to recommend a letter of support from city council?
Well, so the committee meetings are happening between now and the end of April. I think that what would need to be provided, because I think it's not super, the links to the actual bill language, those are not super helpful because it's all in that sort of legalese, and it's not very easy to understand. There are fact sheets for the bills that are helpful, and there are sample letters that boil down the information into a digestible way. So my thought is that for the ones, like certainly for the one that the Climate Center is sponsoring, I'm planning to provide sample letter. The fact sheet is actually included in the slide deck. We could bring these back to, one thing we could do is have it during the legislative session, have legislation update and bill review at every meeting, and just, I can, if there is something we need to do something about, I could make sure that we have a sample letter ready to go and a fact sheet so people can understand what the heck the bill is about. How does that sound? Oh, thumbs up. Good. Yeah, so I'm happy to provide that as a resource. Next person is Council Member Gurney.
Thanks, Woody. Say, I have a thought just about that timing, and then I want to get back to one of the bills you mentioned. On that schedule, if the end of May is the time they have to pass out of the introducing house, and the end of August is the last day to amend, then I think the months to take action are June and July, clearly. Well, and the council generally council cancels one meeting in August, and so that would be too late. So it might just be smart to reserve a legislative action item on the council's agenda, say in end of June or the first meeting in July, and have a placeholder there so that you can put in and ask for letters of support, and connect with Mary now just to put the placeholder request in, and then see what bills there are that you're looking for support. And if there are none, you just drop the placeholder, and the council's all the better because our agenda is shorter. So that would be my suggestion, Woody, because
Okay,
we don't want to miss the chance. And if it has to go through this committee first, then we got to get this committee time to get the timing to get on the council agenda. So let's see.
Yeah, and
We just have to
suggest
figure that out. Yeah.
I think that's excellent. Does the first meeting in June, is that within that range? Because
It would
I'm
be
thinking the second meeting in June often ends up being a budget
Budget.
crunch meeting.
budget
Yeah. Yeah.
and special meeting, right? So it's either the first meeting in June or the first meeting in July, but the budget can cross over those dates as well. So what I wanted to mention though was about the Seamless Bay Area point that you made, to let you know that Sonoma County has already put its 3 transit operators together, working. That's City of Santa Rosa Bus, City of Petaluma Bus, and Sonoma County Transit. They've had meetings probably for the last 8 months to talk about, or maybe it's even been a year, to talk about coordination, consolidation. So while now there are 3 separate agencies, to start looking like one, to operate like one, to sound like one, to have the same graphics, to coordinate the schedule. So ultimately it can be a much more unified service. And at the same time they're working on that coordination, they're also working on the improving the service delivery, the headways, the route connections, all of that. So our transit operators are actually ahead of that legislative action item directing the MTC. And Sonoma County has actually offered to be a pilot project for the MTC in the event the Bay Area counties are wanting to do this coordination and consolidation activity, as well as Sonoma County. So we're really ahead of the game there. Again, without the legislation taking effect even.
well, I'm not surprised to learn that. Once again, Sonoma County out front. So that's good to know. And on the suggestion around getting it onto the calendar now, I'd like to talk to you, Carrie, offline, or Mary, perhaps, if that's who I should talk to about that, because we might want to do one of the meetings in May. So anyway, but I'd like to follow up separately, and that would be with.
Yeah, Woody, I think
with
you
Mary?
just follow up with me directly, and
Okay, with
I can reserve the times on the agendas.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'll follow up with you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
And that includes members of the public. Please bring your public comment forward on this agenda item now before we move on. All right, any parting words, Woody?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that to us all. And I think I will be stealing most of your slide about the budget items for the council presentation next week. That's perfect. So did you post the link to that presentation in the chat, or?
You know what, I'll do that right now.
That would be great. Thank you. So moving on to our next agenda item, which is the zero waste merger proposal. And I'd like to introduce Sunny, who is a very dear friend and also an amazing activist. She has done so much climate work in this community. I'll let her speak for herself, but and she does a lot of mentorship with young people in this community, moving them from all issues related to climate, from compost to policy. So just to say, Sunny, that when one of the things that this committee really gives me is the really true, I'm not saying this sarcastically, like the real true gift of understanding how limited my perspective is. So that when the zero waste merger came up, I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Like this is basically like a consent item. Like everyone's gonna just be like, of course. And that wasn't the reaction of the group overall. Definitely there's a number of people I think involved who had that reaction, but then there was a number of concerns. So it made sense to bring you just to talk about how it's all going to work. And I would really encourage the members of this committee who had concerns about what the merger would look like and how it would exactly work to bring those forward and speak them to you. But it would be great if you just give us a little bit of background on, kind of what is Zero Waste been doing, how many people are members, and how those individuals see themselves interacting if a merger were to take place.
Great, thank you. Nice to see you all. Yeah, let's see, pre-pandemic, our big projects were making a new zero waste event application for events in the city, such as the Apple Blossom Fair that rent city property. And this spring's Apple Blossom Fair will actually be the first event to use that zero waste application. And our committee is going to be helping recruit people to fill those little volunteer slots and stuff. So I'll share that with all of you. That's very exciting. We were also very involved in helping pass the polystyrene ban and zero waste foodware ordinance. So that takeout foodware has to be compostable or recyclable. Let's see, we made a presentation on SB 1383, which I think your committee is maybe familiar with. And we have student groups that are presenting that all around the community to different city councils and Rotary and Lions Club, which has been going really well. We started in Sebastopol and then we've been going out to other Sonoma County communities. So we have sort of an education component. I'm working with Sunali and Jasenia on the upcycled art project, and my group at my school has made some good progress on that just in the last week. It's looking awesome. I'll send you pictures, Sunali. They're having a good time with that. And let's see, extended producer responsibility. EPP, what does that stand for, Sarah? I'm trying to remember. It's basically guidelines for purchases with the city to help reduce waste and energy consumption. So like a purchasing guidelines that the city would adopt when they're making, say, purchases of equipment or supplies. That's another thing we've been working on. We had an awesome contest where we had a winner for a really cool banner for our website. And maybe if we do merge with you, we can share that with you because it is so cool and it's definitely climate action related. I can pull up an image of it shortly in a moment. And then we work pretty closely with Zero Waste Sonoma, the county waste management agency, and Recology on their initiatives and where we can help out, and they support us. We made a film that is almost ready, zero waste, how to put on a zero waste event. It got pandemic delayed, and the children in it are filmed. Some of the scenes, they're a whole entire year older than the other scenes. We have a couple students working on a carbon cycle and composting animation. Anyway, we have various things going on, but to be honest, the pandemic is definitely a setback for zero waste, and we've had to kind of pause on some of the restaurant outreach just because restaurants have been in duress and supply chain. So we are at, I would say, maybe a little more of a lull at the moment, having accomplished some of these bigger projects like passing the polystyrene, etc. ban, and then the zero waste event planning. So we are at a point where, we definitely could use some energy and collaborative input about kind of where, if there's projects with the Climate Action Committee that might fall under waste reduction or zero waste that we could pick up or help with. I would love to have our committees more coordinated. I work with a lot of you on various projects, and want to be part of the cool kids. So I think there's a big interest there. Just making sure we're, kind of coordinated and in line with, the goals of this committee. Yeah, and in my personal life, my mom's health is failing and my dad and brother are disabled. So I have a lot going on, and I'm needing to not be as official as I've been with the Zero Waste Committee, just do a little more kind of working on projects. And Ambrosia has, from Recology, who's very active in our group, has stepped up to offer to be our representative on the committee if we do merge, which would be great. And I would tune in as much as possible as well. But that it would also serve a little bit in that way, allowing me to be a little less official as I try to manage some family business. And then also it's Climate Action Night season, which is so cool, which is our big Santa Rosa Junior College yearly event, where student groups present on climate legislation. And Woody put that link in the chat. That was such a helpful slideshow. I was just lapping it up. Woody's going to be a mentor. I think, Kenna, you are going to maybe be a mentor or backup mentor of sorts. So that's April 21st. So I have, active plans for that. But we do arrange lobbying meetings with our legislators and student groups. We work pretty closely with McGuire's office and Levine's office and Wood's office in terms of scheduling meetings directly between students and the legislators. So that's another place I could kind of help with this group. If we have particular bills we're endorsing, I could bring those up in a lobbying meeting with students speaking directly to their senators and assembly members. So that's, I guess, my pitch.
So how many people are actively in zero waste right now? Do you know?
Yes, I'd have to look that up. It's not a big number. We've had a couple of positions, people drop out and then not filled. So it's maybe like 6 or 7.
And does anyone that has had concerns want to bring them forward at this time? I think one of the concerns that we heard was just, it felt a little, oh, go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to clarify and recap kind of the state of the current proposal. Is it basically just that one person would become a new member of this committee and act as a liaison between the two? Is that pretty much the extent of what we're talking about at this point?
Yes. There'd be one official member, and that would be Ambrosia at this point. And then I would try to tune in at least one of the meetings a month as well, just as a member of the public.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Diane and I thought of this idea because we see both committees, and we talked to Sunny first, just because that meeting came up first, and then we brought this to this group last time. So the suggestion that Sunny's mentioning is what the zero waste people thought was the sort of economical and efficient and respectful way to put the two groups together. If there's some better idea, we're just waiting to hear it. It's not defined one way or another, but that's our kind of working draft of how to approach a merger. To put one seat dedicated to zero waste, that would be a +1 on this board. And then look to the folks who do want to continue on zero waste coming over to this as a working group under zero waste.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, Sarah, it just kind of said what I was going to say. First of all, thank you so much, Sunny, for your amazing amount of work you guys have done, and no small accomplishment in just being here today. And I think there's such a synergy between the two groups. It really makes sense. I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if what Sarah just said, if we could, if one person joined as a member, could the Zero Waste Committee then be a working group? Because I believe that there are working groups that exist right now at the Climate Action Committee where some of the members of the working group are not actual members. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Because I guess what I'm trying to understand too is it sounds like you guys are looking for some inspiration and direction, what you do next, and support and all of that. So it would be nice to have your members as a whole on a working group. And then I did just have one question for you. If indeed there was a merger, would that mean that there would no longer, so you guys wouldn't have any more meetings in and of yourself anymore? What would your members do if we didn't form this this working group, I guess? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if we did merge and form the working group, we would still keep our same meeting time, which is the first Monday of the month.
Okay.
And if not, then I suppose we'll just continue being a city council committee. I guess one of the other things too, Sarah, was that staff and you're in Diana's time, because you're
Right.
on our committee as well. To be official committee, we need city council members on the committee, but that that's an extra time burden for both of you, and then staff as well, which they've not been coming lately.
So there is that economy of effort, and it also would allow the Zero Waste Committee to become an informal working group instead of doing the posted agendas and the whole public recitals, for instance, that Kenna made at this meeting, and the whole formula of the agenda and that whole process. So it would be sort of, I think, kind of a great relief to go informal again.
And then one last question about that, I'm sorry, is that where are we at with the Brown Act then? Because there's only one additional seat, that won't change our quorum that much. And as a working group, they don't need a certain amount of members because they're not, okay. Just getting that Brown Act down.
Sonali, did you take your hand down because you don't have anything to say?
No, I have things to say. Sorry, the volume is still messed up. I just want to chime in with appreciation for consolidation and economy of resources. And I feel like the Zero Waste is definitely a part of the Climate Action Committee already, and we can learn a lot from them in how they've forged the path and what they've implemented. And I think it would just be a boon for everyone. It sounds like for the city, for the staff, for this committee. Yeah, it's just a matter of logistics, and it sounds like we're working through those things. So,
Zeno, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, well, yeah. Hi, Sunny. Indeed, thanks for all the things you're doing. And you asked for some like new projects or new ways to think about zero waste. So I think about zero waste as like the circular economy, where you don't focus on zero waste, but you function on reuse. And I think in the past you have had that perspective, but you may want to maybe rename your group as in circular economy or something like that, because that's, for me at least, an inspiring picture of zero waste. The other thing is I have been advocating something called the Watt Diet, which is really a zero waste project. It involves rewiring your house for full electrification in such a way that you need to upgrade, you do not need to upgrade your panel, like from 100 amperage to 150 or 200. You don't need to do that because you manage your energy use within that existing maximum that most houses have right now. So that's an electricity and an energy project that has a flavor for zero waste because it would require less copper and less wiring and less this and less that. So that could be a way for you group to connect with the broader issues concerning transportation, energy, et cetera, et cetera. Right.
Thank you, Zeno. Any other public comment on this issue while we have our members of the public speaking? I would love to entertain any motions about the merger proposal, the basic proposal on the table being that zero waste would, that we would recommend to city council that zero waste stop being an official city committee and become a working group of the Climate Action Committee with one additional seat added to Climate Action Committee to serve as a liaison to that zero waste working group. Yes, Jerry.
I so move.
That's what I'll second it.
Wonderful. Can we have all in favor? Raise your hand.
Wait. So
Oh,
can I just speak to it for a second?
yes. Oh,
Up to
I
you,
forgot.
you make a motion, you get a
discussion.
second, you
The
speak to it.
discussion. Yes. Now we will
Okay.
discuss.
We add one member because of the transition, but I would hope that we'd have more members of the Climate Action Committee. Ultimately, we'll say, okay, I'm going to work on that task group as well to keep the coordination there. And today, we're enforcing that we have a member from that group to make sure that we have the coordination. But in the future, it would work like all the other task groups that we have.
Thank you. Sarah?
I just wanted to mention that it's good to have the recommendation from both groups, especially if you agree. When Diana and I take this to the council, we'll see what the council says and do our best to work with them to hopefully get to the result that's acceptable to this group. The question will be, what about the appointees on zero waste as they move into a new committee with only one representative? If we have 6 who are appointees, how are we going to do that? And Sunny and I ran that question by the people, and they were, I think, fine becoming members of the working group without the official title of being an appointee. So we kind of did some troubleshooting there ahead of time. So I think we've kind of got the details figured out here. I just wanted to alert you that the council may have what it has to say, which we could have not thought of yet. I don't know.
Can I just talk to what you were just saying, Sarah? Because I'm sorry to jump in. You know, that's the problem with Zoom. You can't talk when somebody says something and make a comment on it. Maybe one of the things that we should have included in our recommendation is that when we have task force, that at least one member of the Climate Action Committee is on a task force. And that allows for the coordination. That generalizes it for any task force that we form. And then we always have to say there's at least one member of the Climate Action Committee is on any task force that's part of the Climate Action Committee. And that might take care of this case. And then we would also have independently that we want to add one more seat right now. And we recommend that Sunny or whoever the appointee would be would take that place.
Joshua?
I'm always into, Sarah, I'm always into generalizing things, you know?
Joshua?
Yeah, just kind of a clarifying observation here. If I understand it correctly, currently we're at about 13 members, and so a quorum is 7, being just slightly over a half. So I think we go to 14 members, which would make a quorum be 8 people, and they would stay at 8 if it went to 15. Is that roughly correct, or is there some other jiggering things?
Jerry, if you know the answer to this, answer it.
I believe the answer is the quorum stays at 7 if you have an equal number of members. You still have the predominant number required.
So half is enough to constitute a quorum in this case?
I believe so. I can always search on the web, but that was what I knew in the past.
Can anyone at the city comment on that?
I'm wondering if Carrie knows. I mean, it's either going to be 7 or 8, and I'm not sure this group has ever had a problem reaching a quorum for any meeting.
We haven't. And
my impression is it's usually almost everybody's here.
If the number did go up, it would make a little more fluidity in our working group membership.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the logistics.
Well,
Right, so quorum is always going to be one more than half. So usually if you have more members, there's a little bit more flexibility in that. Assuming everyone is, more or less a regular attendee like they are with our current CAC.
All right, thank you. So it would go up to 8. Jerry, is your hand still, Jerry, is your hand still up? Okay. Sunny, you've been waiting.
Yes, I'm just remembering, we also have our youth member, Argus, who's awesome. And we were, I think, maybe going to propose that he could take the second youth seat here at the Climate Action Committee. He's been awesome. I have to check with him about his schedule and availability, but he would be a great addition.
Sunny, that's why I raised my hand too, because I just remembered Argus. We said previously at Zero Waste that he would be interested in applying for that youth seat.
Yeah, but I don't think we would make him do the application, right? Because he applied for he already did the application for
right. But we could fill the youth seat with Argus, who is dynamite.
Yeah, so process-wise, I think this would require council approval, but I think it's a pretty simple item, 1 page or so staff report to explain, probably a write-up from the Zero Waste Subcommittee explaining and then how it's going to be combined, and then council approval to do that, basically eliminate the zero waste and then combine it into the CAC with the membership structure as we're talking about today.
Right, Carrie, I thought Diana and I could draft that.
That would be awesome.
If you wanted help.
Yeah, no, that's great, because since I don't have any background on the zero waste other than what Sunny just said.
It's sort of our responsibility, I think, because we got this going.
All right, Joshua?
Yeah, just to say, on the facilitation front, we recently heard from Phoebe, who has been promoting our work and her work at the high school, that there might be an interested applicant or perhaps 2 coming for the youth seat from the high school. So just to say, I want to have a little bit of space to not necessarily make an automatic appointment for the youth seat if we only have 1 spot for a youth seat. And that's all. Just.
Yes, Sunny, go ahead.
I know, Jasenia, you are graduating and you're planning to go to college out of the area, is that correct?
Well, there's no choice of college in the area that I want to go to. So unfortunately, yes, that is the case.
So there will be a seat opening up, in
August, yes.
In August, and the process of applying and whatever and being interviewed by the committee takes time. So there will be another seat available shortly.
Great. Thank you. I was not aware Jasenia was leaving us, so. All right, so any further discussion or public comment on the motion that is on the table to support the merger? Jerry.
Yeah, just one comment for Joshua. If you're worried about the quorum, I just was in an MTC meeting today and they were worried about the quorum for one of their groups. The chair was allowed to appoint somebody as a temporary member of the committee in order to make the quorum. They didn't need it, but that was one of the options available by Robert's rules.
I'm not worried about it. I'm just clarifying because it affects our working group counts and that sort of thing. So.
All right, so all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand so we can see. Looks to me like we have unanimous support for this motion. Am I correct about that? Yes, yes. Okay. So the motion passes. Sarah, were you waving?
You could be sure, Kenna, and just say, are there any
All
no
right, good
votes?
point. Thank you. Are there any no votes? You can see we don't vote on things often enough for me to like get this process down. Any no votes? Okay, I see no one waving their arms in their little square.
And Kenny, you do that in general. You say aye votes, no votes, abstention.
Thank you. But everyone did raise their hand for the yes votes. All right, so I believe the motion passes. And one of these days, if we keep on this long enough, I will get the process down. I'm getting better. So hooray, we actually did something today. And we will move on to a discussion of, it should read Apple Blossom Parade, not Apple Blossom Parade. I'm a bad typist, and then I'm made even worse by my thumb. So Dina, do you want to speak to this?
I was having a conversation with Phoebe last week, and she, it was kind of an outreach group discussion, and she was wondering if there was an interest in the committee being represented somehow in the parade, which also would include zero waste people, and somehow promoting whatever we're doing and the framework as just being visible. So the question is there an interest in this or not?
I mean, for me, I think it's a great outreach opportunity. I definitely think it's something we should do. I just am not sure how to proceed in a way that would, align with our work.
Joshua?
Yeah, just to point out that I see at least a couple of different possibilities for that. One is, a group actually marching in the parade in some fashion, which, is potentially a lot to get together. Another is just having something like a table at the festival that people could, present materials at and do an outreach. So I'm not exactly sure what's being proposed or which options we might want to explore.
Well, she brought up the festival as well, but her understanding with the festival, it would be tabling both days. And that's like a way bigger time commitment than showing up for the parade for maybe 2 hours at the most, if you putting in time and effort to it. And the parade itself doesn't take that long. And yeah, we didn't have a clear discussion on how this would look, but she was just told the deadlines for applying to either one. And there's also a cost. So I don't know that we want to spend any money, but we definitely don't want to commit ourselves to a time thing if nobody's willing to do that.
Deborah, go ahead.
I'm just going to piggyback on what Yesenia said, which is, it's a great idea. It's a fantastic opportunity for outreach, but in my experience, if we, march or have, if we do something without something tangible for people to take away, which obviously doesn't go along with our climate action, wanting no waste. So, I'm just wondering, we definitely need to get something in their hands. I don't think that just marching down there with banners is going to create enough awareness to drive people back. So, again, to Dina's idea from a long time ago about the produce bags, or, there's so much more before that, but I just want to say, if we put in all this effort and we want to get the awareness out there, we definitely want some, to leave them thinking, because it's a big day, a lot is going on. And yeah.
Kathy? You're muted.
I think it would be important to see a show of hands of how many people are already in the parade, and B, would be interested in being the parade and creating some energy for it, because, you know, with other groups, it turns out that a lot of the people are already in the parade or already doing something else that day. So there's a lot of talk about it, but then it comes right down to showing up, and then you don't have anybody in the parade.
That's a great idea. Sarah, you want to speak, and then we'll maybe have a show of hands about those items?
Okay, well, I think Kathy's kind of said the most important thing. What I was going to suggest is we could check if we need some kind of attraction at a table or some kind of giveaway. I'm wondering if Public Works has more of any of the Sebastopils left, the bucket that was designed to fit in your bathroom sink to capture gray water, or Recology, their compost bucket, the free compost bucket.
Sarah, I do have, actually, I asked Raina about that for the buckets, and I think they did, I think they had like a 500 or so. I can look it up and let you know, but I think they did have enough that it would be sort of significant enough for that kind of event.
Well, yeah, I mean, it gives the water conservation drought message real clearly, but first, Kathy's right. We have to see how many people are available to do this work on that weekend.
I forgot to mention that at one time, the art project was wondering if there was going to be some art piece to start showing or promoting somehow.
So let's get an initial just show of hands of, and you know, maybe not everyone. I know I don't have my work schedule sitting in front of me to know whether I'm working that day, but kind of without making a definitive commitment at this moment, how many people think that they might want to show up and do something at either the parade or the festival at all? So yeah, like I'm in for that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm seeing Alex, Jasenia, Lisa, Sunali, Deborah, and myself might be available for that. So that's a small but mighty number of people. Is there someone that would be interested in leading, like kind of taking it on as a project and exploring to move it forward? Lisa, I see your hands up. You better watch out.
You could talk to Phoebe about it. She's the one that brought this up. Although we did talk about the art being debuted around the apple blossom time.
So I actually raised my hand before I heard the question, Kenneth. So I'm already in the parade for something else, and I agree with the comments that were made about we really would need to be actively promoting something or trying to get the public's attention about something important. And I'm not really sure that we are that organized yet with anything. So I could help out at if there was a table at some point over the weekend, but just a little bit. So, I mean, my hand was kind of a little way up. That's all.
Thank you. Sunali.
Sunny, do you know if the Orchard View piece would be done by then? What the likelihood is?
Yeah, can't commit. It's unclear. I mean, there might be something, but it's not like we couldn't march in a parade with it. But like if you guys were having a table, we might be able to bring it to the table.
Have a little bit more than a month. So we have what, 5 weeks, 6 weeks? And we have a few submissions interest in. I could check in with them and see if they could have it done by the deadline, and then that could be our piece, and then we could hand out submission forms.
Yeah, we could probably at least have part of our thing done. I mean, something that we could bring and show. It's an underwater scene made of upcycled plastic. So yeah, I think we could have something to share. I have students volunteering at the festival with the zero waste, compost and recycling. So we'll sort of be the zero waste committee will, and Ambrosia, who's going to be our liaison rep, if that comes together, is coordinating that. So we're going to be a active but distributed presence at the festival.
Okay, and if that's part of the Climate Action Committee, so then we have more to offer.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, so that means we have something to offer, right? Since we're one committee.
I think, Sonali, you're getting a lot of interference. It's like something was touching your microphone. I think you were saying if we were one committee, and that the presence of zero waste at Apple Blossom kind of is a presence of CAC at Apple Blossom, but whether it sounds like these zero waste volunteers are going to be like, are you actively managing the waste streams from the festival? Yeah. So, Deborah. Oh,
I was just thinking of maybe a middle. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying, could be like our float even. They could be walking down the parade with bags of trash, and that could be their float as the announcers announcing the Climate Action Committee and the Zero Waste Committee and what their roles are in the city.
They can't do the parade or organize for the parade. That Climate Action Night's like 2 days before, so I'm going to be occupied.
Deborah?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could find a middle ground here. And what I see a lot happening at the parade is people who maybe aren't marching it or even after they've marched, where they just go to all the people on the sidelines and hand stuff out, informational. So maybe if we have enough people who would be willing to, not table, but walk it and hand out information. It's very common. It's done every year at Apple Blossom. You can use my store as a hub if you want to. And people are just more than willing to hear and talk. And I mean, we walk away with gallons of stuff from being in front of our store. So it might just be a middle ground with not being able to get a whole thing together, but just get some of the word out there. It's a thought.
Joshua?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question about the parade process in general, because we already have the compost giveaway event. The next event is the day after the parade. And in fact, it'll be getting dropped off most likely before the parade. So something I'd been wondering about was, given that, the compost giveaway is essentially a city event and the parade is essentially a city event, would it be feasible to do some flyering or some promotion on the parade route to promote the compost day? If I say I'm going to put up 10 flyers for 2 days and then take them all down, and that would be a way to at least get the word out about the committee and the compost day at the parade without necessarily having a group presence. I'm not sure in terms of permissions for that, if I would just go through Public Works or if it's a little more involved in terms of city approval, but that might be a way to have a presence there without it being involving a bunch of people having to do activities.
Well, I will say, from having been at the farmers market with Phoebe and then monitoring the incoming email to the Climate Action Committee, is that Sebastopol loves that compost, man. Like, they love compost. They're interested in compost. Sign that says compost like gets more people to comment and walk up to your table than anything else. So if we could even, and I think the parade's put on by the chamber, right? It's not actually the city. So it's, but like, if we had an electric truck full of compost with some signage, like that would really be, people want the compost. It excites them and it gets them engaged. So I think if we were going to try to do anything, which I don't feel 100% committed to in any way, but like tying those two things together makes a ton of sense. Or we could say, hey, we're doing compost that weekend. That's our contribution to Apple Blossom. And we could try to do a little media release of, what makes the apple blossoms blossom. Compost. Go ahead, Dina.
And Phoebe was setting up the tabling at the compost on the 12th this Saturday. And anybody that has something they want to talk about from our committee or share, put it on the table with Phoebe. And yeah, if that goes well, we can have a table on the 24th of April as well there.
All right, so I'm not seeing anyone jump up and take the role of organizing an Apple Blossom presence. So in absence of that, unless somebody gets inspired after this meeting, I'm going to say we will move on to our other agenda items, since we are now 15 minutes from the end of the meeting. And just, if there is anyone that feels inspired, please reach out to Joshua and I, and we'll see what we can figure out to support moving something forward, because it sounds like there's general support in the committee, but there's no one actually kind of ready to pick up this ball and run with it. So I know a lot of you guys are going to be working on the compost event. So any public comment before we move on to our next agenda item? I do know we have at least one working group hoping to report out. And now I'm forgetting which one. Was it funding? Lisa? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So Woody's presentation really dovetails nicely into what I wanted to bring up, which was there's going to be a lot of money coming available for cities and towns to do climate work. And the funding committee has been working towards encouraging the city to hire a grant writer. And it's been sort of a stop and go process. But we met with Diana Rich recently, Woody and Steve and I, and feel like we're maybe hopefully going to get the ball rolling again. And one thing that Diana suggested, which I think was a really good idea, is to have each committee think about, if we had money, what is the most important thing we could do with that money? And so if really not just be asking for money, but really think through the process of how it should be spent. So we've done some of that on the Energy Committee, but I think we have some more work to do there. And obviously this is going to take time, but there's a city council meeting, I believe next week, where this is going to get brought up again. Is that right, Sarah? I think so.
Are you saying the grant writer issue is being brought up again?
I believe so.
Carrie,
Well,
I'd have to have you check that on the agenda if you could. I don't have the agenda open, but we know it's middle of March and budget hearings are starting. The budget committee is working now.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, I think they'll fold it into the next budget. That's what I would anticipate.
Okay.
Yeah, I did include that in my budget, even though I do think it's more of a city, and I've talked to Larry about whether it's a citywide versus planning, but I did include that just to make sure that it was included and brought forward for discussion. I am not sure, budget committee meetings start next Monday. I don't know if they're going to be getting to department budgets specifically at that time, however. I don't think they are. I don't have the agenda for that, however, and those, I think, as I mentioned at prior CAC meetings, those are public meetings. So the agenda for that should be posted tomorrow, I would imagine.
Yeah, and sorry, Carrie, you were at that meeting too. I didn't say that. Yeah, and you had some good news for us on that front, which is great. So anyway, this is just I guess a request for when you're meeting with your subcommittees to start thinking about this, and hopefully we'll have it on the agenda soon, that we can be presenting what we think we would want to be focusing on. It's a big subject, I know.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, this is just to add on to Lisa's comment about funding. And I just had come out of a day worth of MTC meetings. And what I discovered through those meetings was that there's a lot more money than the MTC expected to get from the federal government and from the state, including almost 50% more in one set of programs. There's several $billion worth. and they're looking for programs, and it's specifically this. You don't ask for money. You say, I have this project, and this is what the project's going to do, and this is the funding that I need. And those are the ones that they're funding. Specifically, they'll look for PDAs. I complained in 2 meetings today that the proportion of funding coming to Sonoma County and Napa County is inordinately low compared to the other counties, because they perceive that there's no projects available. And in fact, I had the co-chair of the MTC jump in and explain to me, oh, we have plenty of money because we don't have enough projects. And so I think start outlining the projects. In many cases, you might want to look at projects that require a lot more money, because those are the ones they fund fastest, not the small ones.
Thank you, Jerry. Woody?
Thanks. Yeah, Jerry kind of touched on what I was going to say, and Lisa did a good job of framing it and explaining it. And just the little addition to say that, and it's kind of what Jerry was saying, was we kind of had it around backwards, which was we were just sort of going with the notion of course, there's lots of great projects we have to fund, so we just need to hire a grant writer. Well, no, the good suggestion, I agree, it's a good suggestion, is come up with some specific things we actually want to fund and present it that way. So that's the main thing I just wanted to say, which I guess.
Woody, I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I'll point out that MTC has staff specifically assigned to evaluate projects, to work with communities on projects, et cetera. And so one of the things that we should be doing is coordinate with them and meet those people, get their names, and work with them.
Well,
all right.
Jerry, you're our MTC liaison, so you'll help us with that, right?
I'm actually the old person liaison.
No, I am.
All right, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to say what Jerry said and what Woody said. You have to ask, and you have to ask big, and you have to have something to ask for. So the point is to get our heads forward into what we do want to do. What are the actions? And then we can just roll that into the money we need. And you don't get money unless you're ready and unless you ask. So I'd say even to the council, when the report comes up, I would include in that, we're going to be asking for money because we're a busy committee. We have things to do and we want the council to fund us, and we'll let you know through Carrie's budget or whatever. Just put the message out there. That's how you get money. That's how you get things done.
Great. So the request is that all of the working groups really put some mental effort towards figuring out, like, what's our dream? Where would we like to get to? And maybe not approach it from the what can we do with what we have right now, but from the what would we do if we had unlimited resources, and look at it from that direction. Any other working groups want to report out today? Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, just on energy, included in the package today, or on the page, is the spreadsheet that Steve Pierce put together. And that's what we'll be discussing in the next meeting, which is outline of alternatives for what we might do as far as our building code and our energy code in Sebastopol.
So he was saying that attachment went out with on this meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't an attachment. I think it points to the link because we actually have it in the share, and as long as you have the link, and that's on the agenda page.
And maybe we can send that out again with next meeting, just as a reminder to everyone. Dina.
So the compost giveaway this Saturday, the 12th, 10 to 1. Please come get compost, and please consider sticking around a little extra and helping us if you have time and you're able to physically help, because not only have we been getting a lot more inquiries through our working group email, but we've also gotten quite a number of people saying that they physically will need some help with the shoveling and putting in their vehicles. So having just a little bit of extra people around, even part of the time, could make a huge difference.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any report out from working groups? Dina, shall I assume your hand is a legacy hand? All right. So any public comment on the working group reports? All right. So for chair reports, as you know, we are doing I report out to council next Tuesday night, and Phoebe has already built out a very nice little slide deck to report to council about the progress of the climate action framework. And she's on retreat with the other Civic Spark fellows, so she is not here today to present that. But I think she'll do a great job. We will also be doing the kind of first year of CAC in review as suggested by Carrie of in the summary of our accomplishments so far that I gave a few meetings ago. And then funding is going to be helping make a little case so that since we have the ear of the council and the budget committee is on the council, to make a plug for the grant writer in whatever preliminary form we can do next week, and position ourselves hopefully to then make a stronger argument as the budget process moves forward and we conceptualize those projects that we would actually want the money to go to. Joshua, do you have anything? Joshua is going to be putting together the agenda for the next meeting. And he'll be facilitating that meeting. So please reach out to him if you have agenda items for next time, and you can always send things to both of us. But I will be on a trip next time. I'm hoping to attend because I really want to hear the discussion of the REACH codes, but I will be on the move and I'm not sure whether I will be able to. Do we have any input from members regarding next meeting's agenda? We already do have a plan for the energy group presentation and discussion, as well as Emmett Hopkins is going to be coming to update us on some of the work that he's doing. And go ahead, Joshua.
Just while we're on the subject of agenda development, asking a little clarification of the energy folks. Do you all have a proposal that you're trying to put forth, or is this more just sort of analysis and discussion amongst the group in general?
So it turns out that there's multiple different approaches that we can use as far as what we do with our building code, with our energy code. We actually don't have an energy code or a green building code. We do have a building code. And as you heard in the one meeting, Steve actually, in reviewing projects, reviews them at a criteria which our ordinances don't allow him to do. So that's part of what we'll be covering. And what we're going to be looking at is this. It's not just informative. It was informative in the last couple of sessions we did. This time we're going to look from the committee for a vote as to what direction you think the city should go. And we'll try to re-inform you of I think it's 5 or 6 different ways that we could approach this, and then see what the committee says on that. And at that point, I think at that point, it's likely we might even take that as a reference to send a recommendation to council.
Okay, thanks for that.
Right.
Woody?
Oh, good, thanks. 2 items. One of them is not time sensitive, is consideration of the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. And the other one, so that if we don't have time for it next meeting, but maybe the meeting after would be good. The other is having an internal committee discussion on following up on the bird presentation. This is coming out of the transportation committee. We did meet yesterday and we had a lengthy conversation about it. And so we've got some ideas for how to move forward on it. So anyway, if it could be at the next meeting, that would be good. If we have time. It sounds like it's already pretty packed.
All right. Thank you so much. So quickly, a review of our action items before we adjourn.
The main action item as such is that assignment for the working groups to do some budget or some project brainstorming and think about recommendations that would require funding. And then, yeah, everyone, as we've looked at, try to do your homework for the energy options discussion.
And then I believe Sarah and Diana are going to take on writing up the recommendation for the merger. All right, great. Thank you guys so much for your time today. And exciting that we may be getting a new member or two. And yeah, thanks for your time. I will see you guys either next time or in 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenna. Nicely done, everyone. Bye-bye.
Is there a time when we're going to start meeting in person, do you think?
Oh, good
Nurse?
question. What's the